Hi, let's talk about PL900. In this video, I'm going to cover everything about the exam, free resources for the preparation, and how long it takes to prepare. And later, in the end, we'll talk about exam cram, tips, and how to register for this exam for free. Let's get started. About this exam is intended for candidates with technical or non-technical background. There is no coding experience required because this exam we will talk about a lot about no code versus low code. So coding experience is not a requirement. And this is for the people who have area of interest, who wants to improve productivity by understanding the capability of Power Platform. For automatic business processes, basic data analysis using Power BI, and also create low-code apps and chatbot. By clearing this exam, you will learn all about these. And what are the skill measured for PL900? So as it is about Power Platform, and the business value around it. So there is a good focus around what is the business value of Power Platform, and then identify the core components of Power Platform. So there are 4 core components, which is the next 4 topics: Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agent. So as you can see, the exam skills are evenly distributed around these 4 components and overall business value of Power Platform. A little bit more about this exam. There are like 36 questions when I appeared, and the time we get is 60 minutes. Questions are generally not lengthy. I mean, you don't need to read a lot. They are to the point questions. And the question types is a mix. You'll have multiple choice questions. You have drop downs to complete sentences. You need to match the combination, true, false. There are all these kind of sort of questions are there. And for question with the multiple answers, each answer has 1 point. For example, there is a question with the 4 answers or 4 sub answers, I should say. And if your 3 are correct and 1 is wrong, that does not take away all the points for that question. You still get points, 3 points worth for the 3 right choices. And there is no labs in the exam. Even though there is no labs in the exam, I highly recommend to have some practice, and we will walk you through how to do it for the exam for better understanding. The cost of the exam is $99 USD, and there is a free option for training and free certification voucher you can get through that. So this is called Microsoft Training Day, and I have prepared a separate video about how to get free training and free certification voucher so that this exam will not cost you anything. I'll put the link for that video in the description. So I highly recommend to look for that option and try to get a voucher. Once you get a voucher, it's generally you have 6 months to give the exam for free by using that voucher. So look down for more details in the description section. And if you have any question, please comment. So what resources I used to prepare the exam? So one of the main resource was Microsoft official learning website. Down the line I will cover what to learn or cram. There are few things you need to cram and a few things you need to learn. So let me walk you through Microsoft official learning website and write PL900. So here you go. So this is about PL900 Microsoft Power Platform Fundamental Exam. Once you go there, and this exam is just refreshed on March 10th, and I just did it in April. So all we are talking about is the latest material as of April 2021. So if you see here and you scroll down, so this is when we say learning path for learning of this exam. It has like 12 modules. As you can see, I have completed all those. So you go there, each module you need to click and it will walk you through. So for example, this module, right? So you need to go through that. It is showing what is the kind of Canvas app, model driven apps and portals, which is we are going to cover more what to learn and all in this. So this is how you complete all these 8 modules. This is a pretty good learning source. I did not use any other learning material. There is no Udemy course or nothing. This is self-sufficient. This is self-sufficient material. All the 12 modules I will request you to go through these. After that, it's about practice tests. So I used WizLab practice test after going through all this material in Microsoft Social Learning website. So this practice test is more about to get the feel of the exam. I mean, you can use any practice test. You will see that, if you are able to answer those questions. If not, you may need to go through the learning material again, or you may need to learn few more things from the material, or you may need to cram few things. I'll cover those in the next coming slides. And you again try to give this practice test. I did not face much problem. Like, I went through the material just once, and after giving one exam, I was confident enough. So let's talk about practical lab. So as I said, there is no lab in the exam, but as I said earlier, it is good to practice, get the feel of what the Power platform is and different services around it, and this will help you in the exam also. And this Microsoft official learning site which I mentioned, it has a hands-on practice also. Let me show you. For example, how to build a Canvas app. So this is one of the module, right? Build a Canvas app. So it will talk you step by step how to build a Canvas app. So this is a make.powerapp.com. So if we go there, I mean, I have already logged in, so you will see this option. This is Power Apps website portal, or I should say. Here you can say Canvas app from blank, model app from blank, portal from blank. So these are the three apps options we have in Power Apps. So this way you can practice, you can follow along those session and practice some of those things. So here you can, there are chatbots option, there AI builder is there, and there is a flow for automate. So this is the interface you need to use. So how do you get access to that? Because you may need to register for a trial version. So for trial version, I'll put all these links in this, so no worries about that. So one thing which I faced a challenge which would help you also is, like, if you go to Power Apps or Microsoft and you say start for free, right? When you say start for free, it will ask for a work email address. You may not have work email address, or you may not want to use your work email address for this. So there is a workaround to that, and I have prepared a separate video that how you can create your own work email address, or by not using a personal email address. So you need to use, if you have, in that case you need to use Azure ID, and you can create your own non-personal email address. I have created a separate video about it to walk you step by step. I'll put that in the description so that you have a link to that, and you can use that to create a free trial version of Power App. And after that, you will be able to get to this screen for practice. This is not covered in Microsoft documentation, how to do it and all. All they say is go to this and sign in with your organization account. But I have covered that in details in the other video, which I put it in the description. How to use your non-work or school email address if you don't have, or you don't want to use, to still practice this. So make use of that video. It will be helpful. So that's about practice labs, and I covered how to get access. I will put a link for that also. So these are all about the resources which I have used and should be self-sufficient. And about the preparation and timeline. So the main preparation and high level understanding, which is a must, as I showed you, Microsoft Learn, it took around 5 to 6 hours because I was following along everything. There are like 3-4 apps they create. I did it, those apps, or a chatbot, whatever they were going through in those courses. So I did all those. So it took me around 5 to 6 hours. Practice test, I just took one test. It took around 1 hour. And revise the content or the things to remember. And also after the test, you may need to revise few things. You need to cram few things. So for that, it another 1 hour. Then lab practice on portal optional. So you can also try to build some apps to get more confident. It's all optional. So 1 to 2 hours. And then exam itself, registration, check-in, and exam itself, which took another 1 to 2 hours. So as you can see, the total process took 10 to 12 hours, and in which 2 hours are optional. So give or take, it's all about 10 hours for this exam. Now, as I said earlier, let's talk about exam Cram, what to learn and what to cram. So in this section, I'm not going to cover everything. So you need to go through that resources which I mentioned. but still there are few pointers, few tips which help me and which I want to cover are in the upcoming slides. So there are, for Power Platform, there are 4 key products, which are Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Virtual Agent. So about Power Apps, there are 3 types of apps which we can build in Power Apps, and a good understanding of that is a must, right? One is Canvas app. It's a great option when you want to build an app from blank canvas. It's a completely flexible. You can design whichever way you want. Here you need to select whether you want to build for a mobile or you want to build for a screen, and the apps built by this are not responsive in the way they won't work on mobile or different screen without no extra works, but it gives a lot of flexibility. Then you have a second option which is called model driven apps. So model driven apps are built from the data in Microsoft Dataverse. Dataverse is a very important topic for the exam. I'm going to cover in upcoming slide. So what that mean is the apps itself are, the design of the apps itself is coming from the database. So how the data is there in the database, that will determine the design of the app. So you need to do very, very minimum coding or no coding. So, and based on the data and the values in the data, the app will be designed by its own. And the apps in this model driven app will be responsive, meaning it works for mobile and tablet with no extra work by you. Here you define the relationship, forms, view, business rules, and more at the data layer. As I said, inside the Dataverse layer itself, you put everything of the view, forms, and everything about the app, that the look and feel, you define in the data layer itself. So one benefit of that is if you are using some other UI tomorrow, you don't need to worry about redoing the rules and views, forms again, because those are being driven from the data layer itself. So there are 3 design phases for this model driven app. One is model your business data, because it starts with data, and then you define your business processes, and then you build the app. The third option is portal. Portal is a no-code solution to build external facing website. This is a full-fledged website which can be used for external user. So that is comes under the portal category. Then second is Power Automate. So Power Automate is used to automate a lot of manual business processes. So key to remember here is about the flows. There are 3 types of flow: event-driven flow, business process flow, and desktop flow. So there you need to remember when to use which one and what are the differences between these. So there will be questions around that. So event-driven flows, which work with the trigger and then one or more action. So there are 2 subtypes, and we can my flow and team flow. My flows are just where you are the sole owner. Team flows where people are more collaborating, and there are these are the flows which are more than one owner. So these are the things you need to remember. So business process flow are more like when you want to put a full flow of the business process, and it talks about the experience, like what next, you click here, then this, then that. So it covers the full flow of the process. So it creates a guided experience in the model driven app. Then desktop flow is more about RPAs, like robotic process automation, where you do some activity on your desktop and it captures it and then it triggers it to automate it. So that is called a desktop flow. So there could be question in which scenario, which flow makes more sense. So you need to know this for the exam. Then third is Power BI. Power BI is more about analytics and how to visualize the data and make decision from the data. So for the exam, I would say there are this is important 3 parts. For the exam, this is important. There are 3 parts of Power BI. Power BI desktop, Power BI service, which works online like the software service, and mobile Power BI. So then you need to remember things which are common in both Power BI desktop and Power BI's online or Power BI service, we call it, and what are the things which distinguish them. For example, if you see in the below diagram, both of them support reports, visualization, security, filters, bookmark, Q&A, and R visuals. But in the Power BI desktop, it can have many sources, and it can have like calculated columns. So you cannot have calculated column in the Power BI online. and it could have themes and all. So just I say cram these, like what are common and what is the specialty of each of the service. So these are help you in the exam. Like for Power BI service, you can have gateway connection to, and in Power BI there are some filter options there. And one thing to remember, filtering only applies to reports, not to dashboards. There are 4 types of filters: report filter, page filter, visual, and drill through. So report filter applies to all pages in the report. Page applies to the visual on the current report page. Visual applies to single visual on a report page. And drill through allows you to explore successively more details view within a single visual. You click, it gets into more detail, like you're talking about a country, and then you go to a state, then you go to a city, and then this how you drill through and apply the filters. So remembering what are the 4 filters is important. And then is workspaces. So workspace are kind of containers for Power BI, where it has everything together: dashboard, report, data set, data flow in Power BI, everything put together in a container. There are 2 types of workspaces: My Workspace and a workspaces. So you need to know the difference between these two, important for the exam. So My Workspace is the personal workspace to work on the content. If you want to collaborate on the dashboard and report or create apps, then you want to work in a workspace. But the workspaces are used to collaborate with more than within your workspaces. On the other hand, is to collaborate and share content with other members on your team and your colleagues. The only one exception you need to remember is all workspace member for workspaces needs Power BI Pro licenses. So these are the things you need to cram. Then we have Power Virtual Agent. So Power Virtual Agent is to make chatbots, etc. So here there are a few things to remember, like topic. So what is a topic, right? So topic defines how a chatbot conversation play out in Power Virtual Agent. It defines a chatbot conversation, and you can have up to 1,000 topics in chatbot. Things to remember. Then there is something called build session. A build session is an interaction between a customer and a bot, and represent 1 unit of consumption. So that is what the build session is. And there are some instances or some cases when the session ends. So these are the 3 scenarios when the session is considered ended, and you need to remember these. When the user ends the session, like for example, when the bot does not receive a message for more than 30 minutes, and when the session takes longer than 60 minutes, automatically it is considered as session ended, a new session starts. And when there are more than 100 turns, like there are more than 100 conversation, and again that is considered as a session end. So these are the 3 scenarios when a session is considered as ended. So you need to remember this, the timing and the counts for the exam. This helps in the questions. So we talked about all the 4 components, but there are like some cross-cutting features which works across all those 4 components which we just discussed. For example, AI Builder. AI Builder provides capability to use AI for these components. Then Microsoft Dataverse. So Microsoft Dataverse is also a very important component for the exam. It is a scalable data service and app platform. So it is not only a database, it provides data services and app platform, which lets users securely store and manage data from multiple sources, and then integrate that with the common data model to ensure easy and consistency to user. So I'll say go through Microsoft Dataverse in good detail from the Microsoft material which I mentioned, and there are things to remember and cram which I have covered about this, about the Microsoft Dataverse, because a lot of those things in the Power Platform are based upon Microsoft Dataverse. And Microsoft Dataverse itself is based upon common data model. So common data model means that there is a predefined set of data structure, that how the table and columns would be there, which are used across the industry and across products. So it's not only Microsoft. Common data model is a common data model to make it easy to use applications easily across different products and industries. So the micro dataverse is built on top of that. And then there are connectors. There are like all these apps connect to different data sources, or even like different places where data is there. For example, it connects to LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere, right? So there are like more than 275 connectors there, which can be used in Power Platform. And that helps you to enable all the data and actions to connect cohesively. There are different types of connectors, good to remember for the exam. There are standard and premium. And also there is something called app source. If you don't find a connectors, you can create your own connectors. And those connectors which are publicly available, like it's like Play Store. So they have app source where you can find a connector from there and download it. And even if you don't find it there, you can also create a custom connector. So there are a lot of options around connectors. And then there are security topic roles, what are the different roles, etc. are there, which are used across the platform. So in the upcoming few slides, we are going to talk about all these cross-cutting features which are used across Power Platform. So AI option in Power Platform. There's not much tested on the exam on this. All you need to know is there are like 4 AI models that are applicable to Power Platform, like prediction, form processor, object detector, and text classification. So prediction is used when you need to predict something will happen based upon the previous data history. Form processor is a model extract text from an image. For example, business card reader. If you have a business card reader and you want to make a app, so you will use this AI feature, form processor. And then there is object detector when you want to identify objects from an image or a photo and then provide count of number of objects, etc. So you have an option to use object detector. And text classification, and this is a finding the meaning for analysis on the text. So all these AI models are readily available Power Platform, and that are easy to use, plug and play, so you can make robust apps and other products using Power Platform with the power of AI. So Microsoft Dataverse, as we discussed, it is very important, and there is a question about how it fits within the environment. It is pretty important for the exam. A lot of question and could be from here. So that's why I thought of covering it here. Environments are, so what is an environment? Environment are used to store, manage, share, organization, data, apps, flows in Power Platform. So everything is in an environment. So each environment allows one Microsoft Dataverse database. This is important. So one environment cannot have more than one Microsoft Dataverse database. So Microsoft Dataverse environment allows you to manage user access, security setting, and the storage of the database. That is the capability it provides. And each environment created under Azure AD. So you can control the access and all resources through Azure AD for each environment within that environment. Okay. So also an environment is also bound by a geographical region. For example, as shown in the image there, this is a one tenant. It has different environments, one for USA, the one for Canada, and one for Australia. So environment is bound to a region also. So each environment is bound to a region, and you can have only one Microsoft Dataverse database in one environment. And what if you need more environments? The last point here, for development, testing, and production, you can create separate environments. So you will, like if you see the first example for USA, it has one environment for prod, one for test, one for dev. So same for Canada, Australia. So in this diagram, it is shown as 9 environments are being shown. So that means 9 databases, Microsoft Dataverse databases are there. So these are the few things to remember for the exam. That environment is specific to a location, and each environment can have only one database, and each environment has Azure AD, and it can control the access to user within that tenant. And then in Microsoft Dataverse, there are something called business rules. So as we discussed earlier, business rules allow you to apply and maintain business logic at the data layer instead of app layer. So one thing to remember is there is about canvas versus model apps. There are few business rules which can be applied to both the apps, but there are few which can apply only to model app. So The rules which can be applied to both canvas and model apps are set column value, clear column value, validate data, and show error message. So these are kind of rules which you can apply to both canvas and model app. But there are some special additional rule which you can apply only to model driven app. For example, show or hide column. You can control what to show and hide using business rule in the database, and you can use that for model driven app. The other one is enable or disable column. Create business recommendation based on business intelligence. So these are things you need to remember, because there could be questions around that, like which rule applies to canvas or model versus which rule applies to only model. Then connectors. As we mentioned, connectors are used to connect to different databases or actions. So custom connectors, you can create custom connector using 3 different approaches. You can using a black customer connector, you can create from your scratch, from an open API definition, from a Postman collection. So these are the things you need to remember. You don't need to create it, but you need to remember what are the 3 different approaches. And about connector and security, there are like business versus non-business connectors. So you can differentiate based on the usage. And there are blocked connectors. Any connector that you want to restrict usage of across one or more environment, you can classify as blocked. And another important thing is, when a new policy is created, all connectors are default to non-business group. So these are things you need to remember. There could be questions around these. And finally, about security and roles. So there are different kind of roles, and there are different kind of privileges for those roles. So you can go through this in detail. Environment maker is a role where you don't get any privilege, you don't have access to data, but you can create new resources that are associated with an environment. System admin has the most powerful role. It can do everything. And then system customizer, it has a full permission to customize the environment, but it can view data only that this user has created. Then you have Microsoft Dataverse user. It can run an app in the environment and perform common tasks for the role they own. And then you have a delegate role. It acts on behalf of another user. So these are important to remember, which role does what and what privilege it has. So I think this also you should remember for the exam. Alright, good luck for the exam. Thank you.